The 32X was a troubled machine. It was Sega of America's noble attempt to bridge the gap between console generations in an affordable, sustainable manner by providing a hardware-based power boost to their popular 16-bit console. Unfortunately, it was plagued with issues ranging from quirks within the hardware itself to a lack of support from developers and even direct competition from within Sega itself. The system's short, disappointing lifespan remains a black eye for the brand to this day. One of the things that prospective 32X players were crying out for were high-end, exclusive titles that would show off the power of the 32-bit system and justify their purchase. Unfortunately, these were far and few between. One game that may have fit the bill was an exclusive Xmen game that received some fairly good press during development, but was eventually cancelled and lost to time. In the early 90s, the X-Men were one of the hottest properties around. Along with the popular comic lines, there were also toys, clothing, and one of the coolest cartoons of the era. Along with all of these, there were the video games. Home consoles, handhelds, arcades. The X-Men license was everywhere. Kids simply couldn't get enough of it. This is why an exclusive X-Men game for the 32X was such a promising idea. What better way to convince players to invest in the new hardware? Unfortunately, things did not quite work out as expected. One key element of the game was that it had to show off the power of the 32X compared to the Mega Drive. The X-Men games on the 16-bit system had generally been well received, especially the excellent Clone Wars. However, they were mostly 2D platformers, a genre becoming increasingly associated with the old generation of consoles. To make a dent in the next-gen market, the game needed to be 3D. Or as 3D as the relatively underpowered 32X hardware could handle, at least. Interestingly, the game appears to have been in development by Xirinx, a group of former Amiga demo scene coders. Their work on the Mega Drive had been some of the most technically excellent of any games on the console, so they were well placed to squeeze as much out of the 32X hardware as possible and prove that its existence was justified. The result was an interesting 3D-ish action game. Players would move their character around a 3D space to explore various locations and defeat villains. Characters and other elements in the environment were sprite-based, but used scaling effects to make them work within the 3D playspace. A leaked prototype demonstrated the effectiveness of this approach. In this early build, the player controls Bishop and can navigate through a few basic stage designs. It's obviously extremely early, with very few combat or additional mechanics implemented, and no real way to meaningfully progress through the game. As a proof of concept for the game's technical direction, though, it's very successful. The game moves smoothly, even when several characters are on the screen at once, and the sprites allow for the comic book characters to retain a lot more detail than the crude 3D models of the era would have been able to achieve in comparison. The game seemingly made it pretty far along in development, with screenshots of Wolverine appearing in previews, and Sega themselves even promoting the upcoming title in their 1995 product catalogue. The description there paints a picture of what the final game would have been. Wolverine, Bishop, Rogue, and Iceman are plunged into a terrifying world of madness, murder, and mayhem, as the Millionaire Killer for Hire arcade tries out a bizarre new techno toy on them. Using a mental image projector from his Murder World theme park, Arcade tricks the popular heroes into battling mutants, evil warlords, and deadly ninjas. New style viewpoint that follows the actions through the 3D worlds, SGI rendered characters, and motion capture animation makes this the most incredible X-Men game yet. Unfortunately, it was not to be. Likely due to the low sales and ever-weakening prospects of the 32X, X-Men was cancelled. It's a shame, since previews generally seemed positive, and it seemed like the sort of exclusive title that the 32X had been screaming for since the day it was released. The prototype build, early as it was, definitely showed promise too. Ah well, I guess we can console ourselves by playing one of the many X-Men games from that era.